What's up, everybody? Welcome to Podcast Now. I'm Alex, and this video I want to review Tell Me Why Chapter 2. Now, I reviewed Chapter 1 last week. It got, the views, obviously non-existent. I don't expect to get views on these Tell Me Why videos, but I really enjoy making them, and I think that it definitely attracts a different kind of audience that normally doesn't watch this channel. So I really do want to thank you guys up front for supporting this video and for, just for clicking on it. So let's talk about this. There are going to be spoilers for this, and if you guys want me to enough, because I am considering making like a theory video of where this game is going. I'm not bound, I don't believe, by any thing of what I'm not allowed to talk about. I don't know the ending of this game in terms of like Chapter 3, so I am planning on possibly doing a theory video, kind of figuring out what's going on before Chapter 3 comes out, see if I'm right when it happens, and go from there. So you guys can let me know if you're interested in that. So this episode, it had a lot, I would say, of strengths. And in honesty, in true honesty, I think the strengths and weaknesses of this episode, some of them were the same, kind of, from the first chapter, but some of them were also different. I think, you look at what I said about that first chapter, I think one of the main, we can talk about weaknesses first, okay, of this one. Allison definitely took a twist. In the first chapter, I said Tyler, I just really didn't like. And again, as I said there, I don't want it to be taken out of context. I don't like him as a character for a lot of different reasons. You can go watch the Chapter 1 review. But what I will say is, there were signs of, by the way, him being a good character in the first chapter. He was much better in Chapter 2, I would say that. They didn't start him out so well, still making him seem like, oh, everything's about me, I'm a brat, all that kind of stuff. Same issues that plagued him, I think, in the first chapter. But overall, I would say he was a much, I don't know, maybe I got more comfortable with the kind of character that he is in terms of how he acts. Also, I would say the spotlight wasn't on him as much, and I feel like that's kind of important to what this chapter was, and that, I would say, goes to the chapter's strength. This chapter tried to do some different things, I would say, than the first one, but this chapter, I think, focused more on Allison, even though, again, you were pretty much split, I would say 50-50, playing as them. Allison's turn. And Allison, again, I get where she's coming from. I think I get where she's coming from and understand her character, in this chapter more than I did with Tyler in the first one in terms of why he acts bratty and stuff like that. With Allison, she kind of does the same thing here. She kind of acts like, oh, I can't go through this. It's like me. And I really feel like that is a running theme with the first two chapters, is they're very selfish. Both these characters, and especially in the first, I'd say maybe half hour of Chapter 2, you just continue to realize that these characters are honestly, they are pretty selfish people. And maybe that's done on purpose. Maybe that's just how I read into it. And again, if you guys don't agree, totally cool. And by the way, these are just talking about the weaknesses. There were a lot of strengths, but I would say weakness-wise, Allison was not the greatest. I thought she was a very good character. I thought she was my favorite character in the first chapter. She's still solid, but I think she's taken a drop now because of how she acted overall in Chapter 2. And then I will say, the only other weakness that I would say is like a glaring thing. There were some small things. There were weird kind of like game things where like sometimes the audio would cut out, or like things with their body. There was some weird stuff in it, not very often. But the other main thing is, both these chapters, and I feel like this is also going to be a theme, they really are padded. I really feel, like filler-wise, there is a really solid story and tale and, I don't know, mystery, right? I think that's a good word, that's going on in Chapter 1, and really amplified, by the way, a lot in Chapter 2. Like, there's a really good what they're trying to do, okay? If you took out all of the meaningless stuff that happens in Chapter 1 and 2, and I would assume 3, you could probably have put this thing out 3 hours, one thing, one episode, one experience, and that would have been it. Twin Mirror, Don't Nod's other game, they were going to do episodic, remember, and then now they say it's just a full game. You're going to buy the full game. Probably will be around 10 hours. Probably will be as if you bought like a 3-4 chapter thing. Now, again, I don't really think this game needs, tell me why, I really don't think it needs to be, 9, 10, 11 hours. In this chapter, there were so many things that were meaningless. The beginning, even like selling things off, choosing what to do. Yeah, you do get some memories there, and there are some things that push the story, but overall, that wasn't counting things in the stock room was, I think, and throwing the I don't even know, the plushie at Michael, that was probably the biggest waste of time I've ever seen in a video game ever. That was, that was bad. That was honestly, I watched that as I was playing it, and I said to my wife, this is absolutely not necessary to the game whatsoever. So I think, and I get it. I mean, you're giving him a love interest, all that kind of stuff, but at the same time, there were just a lot of things I think you could just cut straight out of this game, and you would make it an overall better game. Now, I know I spent 5 minutes talking about the negatives. The positives, look, the mystery of the mom is fantastic. I actually really love what they're doing. Definitely took a different, and I understand why now they said, and I don't know what words are allowed on YouTube specifically, so I'm going to be careful. I'm going to assume a lot of words aren't allowed. Tyler as an individual, right? Obviously, that was a main focus of the first chapter, and Don't Not even said, like, hey, it is a focus of the story, but it's not the main story. The main story is about what happens to the mother. You see that in the first chapter where it is focused a lot on Tyler's transition. I'm pretty sure I'm allowed to say that, and things regarding that. I will say this in chapter 2, it definitely changes where, okay, we've kind of moved on from that part, and now we're talking about what in God's name is going on. This Mad Hunter, whatever they called him, and now we kind of find out like that was their dad, but we don't know who the dad is yet, and now we see that and this is, by the way, again, I said in the beginning with spoilers, Allison has basically lost her mind. You saw that she lost her mind really at the end of this chapter, which does, I think, play into what will happen in chapter 3, but I mean, they're getting their thoughts confused, and you're seeing that at the end of this chapter, again, with Tyler, projecting something at Allison, but that's not, he didn't actually say that. He said that to Eddie earlier, and then you see at the very end, Allison almost does the same thing. She heard the mom tell the mystery figure that she's going to kill him, but then it seems like maybe she projected it later when the mom was chasing Tyler, or Ollie at the time, right? So, and maybe so if she projected that the mom was going to kill him, and then she stabbed the mom, that's how you could get all that stuff to work. So again, the mystery there is really good, and even the underlying emotions of like, look, the mom, I mean, and I really don't think they focused on this enough, and that is kind of, sad, but maybe they will in chapter 3, is like at the end of the day, Allison, I don't think, she is like grieving, and I think not having a good time figuring out that the mom was not actually what she thought when she, was going to kill her, right? But yet again, she didn't actually kill her, and that's an important point that the game has kind of danced around. She stabbed her. She died by drowning, which I assume we're going to get the conclusion of in the third chapter. But I don't know if Tyler and Allison are doing the greatest job of saying, like, we were wrong about our mom, because they keep calling her Mary Ann. You know what I mean? And maybe that's just how those two characters are. But I would just be, in my personal situation, I think for me, I would be like really, really be like destroying myself, where it's like, man, I got this wrong, and I got this wrong for years. They've said stuff like that, but I don't know. I don't think they've fully embraced, and I mean Don't Nod, by the way. I don't think Don't Nod's fully embraced what they could do emotionally with that. What they have embraced is the town, like seeing all these characters kind of going through what their kind of experience of what happened, and again, trying to fill in the gaps of, okay, the mom wasn't really, and again, you kind of understand it too. That's why I personally forgave Eddie, and even with like Tessa, like it's like, you know what, it's kind of fine, because I can see how they thought, and because it kind of was true, like the mom was not friends with anybody, she was pushing people away, she was kind of like losing it. She wasn't able to support her kids. I mean, she could have inadvertently, if there's not food and water on the table, stuff like that. I mean, she could have killed the kids at some point, like in the future. So like, I understand why social services were called. I understand why characters did certain things. And I think that's good, because I think if you don't get that, if you don't kind of not necessarily side with them, because again, you don't have to side with them. You don't have to say, oh, Eddie's the greatest character, and I would have done the same thing. All you have to do is, okay, I see why he did it. And I think Don't Nod actually does a really, really good job in chapter 2 of saying, okay, and really, if you go back to even chapter 1 with the mom, they've done a really good job of saying, okay, you can look at these characters in multiple ways, but you can actually understand in multiple ways of why they're doing it. You could see why Tyler and Allison may not like them for doing it, but you can also see why they actually did it, and then you can just pick for yourself, and you oftentimes get to do that as those characters. You get to pick if you forgive them or not. And I think that's a really, really powerful thing. So I think that is the biggest strength of chapter 2 is they are, I think, being very reasonable with certain characters in terms of understanding where they're coming from. The mystery with the mom is really, really good, and I wish we could have focused, like cut out all of the garbage in this episode and just focused on that. I didn't even mention this in chapter 1, but in the chapter 1 review, I don't do review scores. I think the way I do it is I kind of just ramble on like this, talk about it, and then you guys can kind of get the picture if I like it or not. I think overall I did like this episode. I think there was a lot of problems with it. Same thing with the first chapter. I think, like I said in the first chapter, Don't Nod is very, very up and down. They've been up and down literally, in my opinion, since after the first Life is Strange game. I would say that was overall extremely high quality, and then after that, it's just been so up and down, it's ridiculous. And then tell me why. I think you're literally seeing that in the episodes. Way too much filler, way too much stuff that just doesn't need to be there. Characters that I think sometimes are main characters that I think are poorly done at some points. Tyler in chapter 1 and Allison at parts of chapter 2. But at the same time, you see really, really big potential. I think that kind of actually sums up Don't Nod very, very well. So again, guys, let me know in the comments below what you think about this episode. What would your review of it be? And let me know if you want to see that theory video. I think I may do it anyway. This video probably won't do very well at all, but I do want to talk about what I think could happen in chapter 3. So we'll do that later on, this upcoming week right before chapter 3 comes out, and then we'll review chapter 3 and go from there, okay? Make sure you guys are subscribed, have the bell icon turned on, and I hope to see you guys on those videos.